Ladies and gentlemen, Daisy and I are doing a Mitsubishi
excuse me,
motor repair. Daisy is in the process of digesting breakfast, and today's video is going to be about Mitsubishi engine coolant and muffler repair and the proper procedure to make hoses and install the hoses on any engine anywhere in the world. So let's start with something simple. Daisy, no, honey, I have that like that because I want it like that.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm making a video and she's removing my props. Okay, so the first thing you need to do when you're doing an engine coolant repair is you're going to need a good adhesive or bonding agent for the hose to the surfaces. The second thing you need to understand is that the surfaces should be clean and dry, but in my case as a jet mechanic, and we're going to do this from a perspective of a jet mechanic, I clean the surfaces, polish them, and I put a coat or a coat and a half of oil-based paint on the surfaces, because from the time you do the cleaning of the surface and the time you might be installing the pieces that you created, the parts will rust. So you preserve them. You can either preserve them with oil but that's messy. In my case, I preserve everything with paint. Now, so the next thing you need to understand is when you're making hoses, to buy if you have to build hoses, because they're not available in the Philippines, you have to buy your hoses longer, a few inches longer than what is necessary. And I form fit my hoses to my parts. So if there's a notch that the hose goes in, I butt the hose up against the engine part, I mark it with a magic marker, and then I notch it like that. In this case, I couldn't buy this part and it has a hole in it, so I'm going to put that hose over the hole, which is why I wanted to get it up as far as possible. And then I'll put a band on this side of the hole and this side, and you can see that hole by looking into the screen. The second thing you need to understand when you're putting hoses together is how to install the bands. Now, every hose, theoretically, if you have space, should have two bands opposing one another, like this. Make sure that the screws are facing away from the engine so that you'll have access to the screw bands once you install them, because on this side is a radiator fan, and on that you don't want to have them facing the radiator fan. They can be facing upwards. So, and I also have, for those screws, I have the proper size socket. Okay, so you set up your sockets, and or if you have a drive like this, you set that up before you start your job. Now, this hose has two bands opposing one another, and it has let me have the gasket material, honey. Yeah, it has the gasket material, this gasket material, both inside the hose and outside the nipple. And you can let that set for 5 minutes, before you put the hoses together. It's not an instant dry stuff. And then you clamp the hoses down. Now, this is important when you're putting hoses together. New hoses have a rule in the jet mechanic industry or aircraft industry that the bands should be compressed exactly enough to make the edge of the band right here, the edge, flush with the rubber. So once you squeeze, this is new hose installation, once you squeeze it down flush with the rubber, that should pretty much guarantee you a secure. That's how much it should be tightened down. Now if the hose is too big, for the fitting, then you're going to have to tighten it a little bit more. But that's the proper procedure. And then once it's all together with the opposing clamps like this, so that one squeezes this way and the other one squeezes that way, kind of like vices in different directions. So then you put the gasket material on the face of the flange. You put it on the face of the in this case water jacket cover, and you put it on both sides of the gasket, and then you squeeze it all together, and gasket material will come out all the way around like this, and that guarantees you a watertight fit. Now, something else you want to remember is if you're using new bolts or bolts that are going to go in a water environment, I paint all the threads. I paint all the bolts. Now, these are cadmium painted bolts. Now, where it's not painted up in here, I'm going to fill that up with the gasket sealant so that it will not rust or oxidize inside these bolt holes, because when I went to take this apart, they were frozen solid. And I also paint inside the bolt holes to ensure less oxidation or rust. So that's how we repair, in this case, a water coolant system. Now, for the radiator, okay, now if you have a radiator and you have a hole in the radiator, you can go to the store and buy this material, which is asbestos. Now, Daisy, move your leg. Yeah. Okay, right here, Daisy found this hole when we were cleaning up the machine. Right here is a hole. So you could take a piece of asbestos material. Now this, I have a lot of this because I used to own cranes and barges and stuff, and sometimes the holes would be bigger. You could just take a 6-inch piece of this, wrap it, just put it on here like a Band-Aid, and wrap it with tie wire, and then of course I would paint the tie wire. So, but in this case, I have stainless steel. I have a stainless steel banding machine that I'm going to use to make special stainless steel bands. So this is Michael Fazio and
This is me
doing machine repair in the Philippines. And one more thing, I put Teflon tape around the threads where it's going to go through into the body, into the threads, so that because we cannot purchase Loctite in the Philippines. Go figure. So thanks for watching our videos, and this is the home of the future hotel that we're building, that no one has guessed the name for, by the way, or even come close. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, you can become a member of my Patreon account for $1 a month in the machines section, and I will answer your questions. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.